Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. As with all of our best teams video, there will be a team for you in this video regardless of how new you are, how many 5 stars you have. Don't worry, there's something for everyone in this video. Now, first thing that I want to talk about is not all of us might be super aware of exactly what Sunday does, so let's do a very quick recap. Think of him, the easiest way is very similar to the likes of characters like Bronya. He's basically like a super limited Bronya, where he does a lot of crit rate buffing and crit damage buffing, but at the same time he has that 100% action advance that Bronya gives. Sparkle only gives like 50%, so you can select a particular target, push them up by 100%, give them a crit damage buff that scales off of with his own crit damage. At the same time, you also get crit rate buff of a flat amount, of a decent amount as well, and he also gets a lot of damage bonuses. If the unit has a summon, he gives even more damage bonus, which is really why they called him like a summon kind of unit. But reality is you can actually play him outside of summons because he does a lot, as you can see, a lot of other buffs other than that, a little bit more damage bonuses, which is very significant as well. Last but not least, of course, he also gives energy regen. He is basically like Tingyun plus Bronya both in one, and summons as well. That is all you need to know to get started. The big picture, and we always like to start things off with like the big picture because I understand you guys want to build your teams. Where does he exactly fit into this whole thing? He fits very nicely into, if I were to call this like the 9 teams of Honkai Star Rail, including like summons as one of the new summon units, these are the main styles that he plays into. If you're looking for a hyper carry, he is very excellent because of his single target pushing up ability, buffing them with crit rate, crit damage and stuff like that. His out also gives energy to funneling into like one hyper carry kind of style. At the same time, he also plays into fast and often because of his action advance. Fast and often meaning units that like to burst more often. For example, like Argenti, for example, like Serval. Units that like to act more often like Fei Xiao. These are kind of units that fulfill the fast and often team composition. He buffs energy. He buffs action advance, very befitting of a role for fast and often teams who want to hit as many times as they can. Last but not least, of course, the 9th team, which isn't super meta right now, but is for the future. That's why I put it in a question mark. That is a summon-related team, or basically any team with remembrance characters as well. So now that we know like an overall view and a bit of simplified thing of what Sunday does, let's start off with the first major team. You will probably see this everywhere. This is the Summon Sunday teams. First of all, why is he like quote-unquote summon good, right? So good for summon? Is because he gives an additional 50% damage bonus when that unit has a summon. Without it, it's just like 30%, so you get from 30 to 80% amount of damage buffing if the unit has a summon, which is massive. Currently in the game, we have 3 summon type units. The best out of all of them that that is able to use him Sunday's kit the best is probably Jingyuan. Lingsha is like so, maybe unless you're like meme crit Sha build and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend it for most people. Topaz and Nambi is of course another decent user. So I'll rank it like this. 1, 2, 3 currently the game state. Jingyue actually becomes very strong as well, as we will see in videos that we put out on the channel shortly too. Other than that, this is for the current game state. In the long run, any remembrance characters will have summons with them as well. They mentioned this officially in the 2.7 live stream. So any remembrance unit will pair very nicely with Sunday. He gives them a lot of damage buffing. As long as they are some sort geared towards DPS, we don't exactly know what Aglea does, or for example, Remembrance MC, what they exactly do. But if they do damage, most likely they'll be forming in the synergy slot. So I'll put Remembrance MC here as a representative for all Remembrance characters. As long as they want to do damage, doesn't imply that Remembrance MC is a DPS by any means. So in this summon slot, what else is really good? Of course, you could actually just slot each and one of them into each of these categories, because one of them is like a DPS, one of them is like a sub DPS, one is a sustain. You get a very nice like summon related comp already, but not everyone has so much resources to pull these particular 3 limited units, especially since before summon they probably weren't really played together at all. So let me give you some options of alternatives if you only have like one of these. Let's just go for the mainstay as like Jingyuan or a remembrance character, because not everyone is going to play Crit Sha main DPS or Topaz and Nambi main DPS for the most part. So in the pivot slot, you can either go for a second buffer. For example, maybe you can run like a cheap unit like Esther, or basically any Harmony unit, any Nihility unit that focus on debuffing. You're really pairing together with the main character. So whatever main DPS you're buffing, look for the team comp video on our channel on that, and then you will find very nicely a pivot slot. But pivot slot is basically going to be your damage amplifiers, and utility of course is any sort of sustain that is able to buff your main DPS. Out of all of them, I think Huo Huo works the best, because Huo Huo gives a lot of percentage energy for the rest of the team. Sunday loves energy also, and he also funnels the energy back to the DPS. So you get tons of energy. I think characters that are really great, for example, is like Tingyun together with like Huo. These units give a lot of energy as well, which Sunday likes, especially with like emergency need to like buff someone for some sort of energy. So these are great options, but of course, as you can see, it's very flexible. It really depends in the summon team what your main DPS is like. But for Tingyuan, for example, I can easily simply go with the top row here, or if you really wanted to, you can run like some sort of sustain. If you want a 4-star sustain in the last slot, you can run something like this. All of them work quite well too. And that's for the summon teams, which is really where he's going to be mainly played right now in the current game state for summons. The way it expands on is Remembrance teams. We will likely do more Remembrance comms for those particular characters, Remembrance characters as they come out. Sunday is going to be a crucial part in those, so you can stay tuned to the channel for that as well. Now next up, I want to talk about, this is a special meme push strat team composition that I came up with, which probably is going to be a very, very interesting as well. What this is if you realize Sunday has 100% push, Bronya has 100% push, and Sparkle gives a lot of skill points for the other two Harmony units to give their pushes. At the same time, she also does like 50% push. They give a lot of crit damage to each other, which is going to be really, really nice. Your main DPS is going to love it a lot. So if you have a hyper carry main DPS like Jingyuan, a Sunday, Sparkle, and Bronya team composition is going to be really, really massive. It's going to be a lot of damage as well. Because imagine you start off the turn, you 0 cycle it with like Sunday pushing him up, whoever is your fastest character, and then Bronya pushing him up again, act again. Lightning Lord might not always get to act, but at least you can keep pushing Jingyuan up to do a lot of like damage. And eventually, if you have a Remembrance character, it's going to like really, really pop off even more. You don't even have to play like Jingyuan here if you wanted to. If this is like really, if you're trying to min-max Sunday's summon damage potential, you can of course run like other hyper carry kind of DPS, for example like Fei Xiao as well. If like Zila to some extent, anyone that has like hyper carry-ish kind of style is going to really, really like this min push strat where you try to loop them non-stop. Even better if you have triple S5 dance, whoever has that, you might be able to like 0-turn a lot of things with this massive damage. I know of course it's not very, very cheap to have all these comms. Hyper carry is very versatile. You can choose the DPS that you want. You can even put like Servile here if you really wanted to and if you really needed to. Bronya is also coming free in the upcoming patch in 2.7 all the way up to 3.2. You can claim the standard ticket. So I assume that most people have her. If you are still wondering what to pick up, we have a video on the channel talking about the best standard to pick with your free tickets. But I assume that she's going to be here. So the one that I want to talk about is replacements for Sparkle, because not everyone might have Sparkle in this meme push strat. Some of the comms that you have available is like Tingyun, Hanya, Huo. All these characters kind of hyper carry in the same way. They're very single target buffing focused. They either buff energy or they buff speed. Huo in this case gives everyone energy as well, so you help loop them through very nicely. I think this is really fun, especially if you're looking for 0-turn cycles. This might be like the meta way to go in future, especially if the unit has summons. You get insane amounts of buff from all your triple Harmony units if you can 1-turn all of them too. So meme push strat, which is really a subsidiary of hyper carry team compositions, because this is like super focused. Hyper carry team compositions probably is better in like outside of Memory of Chaos, where you don't really need sustain at all, or you can like one-shot everything without them taking action. Other than that, hyper carry is where he's really strong because he plays very similar to Bronya, and characters that can be hyper carried will be like Akirion, Zila as we mentioned, but these maybe are requiring a bit more special sets. So for example, characters like Sparkle and Bronya again are really strong in the hyper carry section. Of course, you can go with your cheaper alternatives like Tingyun, Hanya, which we talked about, or even running for example like Ruanmei, Yukong, or if you're playing Akirion, Jiao Qiu and stuff like that. All these kind of characters can fit the pivot slot, but he's basically like a Bronya 2.0, really strong for summon units. Outside of that, he becomes like a better Bronya because he also buffs crit rate for your main DPS and crit damage and energy, action advance all at the same time. Super strong unit. And utility slot is super flexible, but out of all of them, I probably like Huo the most because she gives a lot of energy throughout the team, a lot of attack, which helps you go in the hyper carry style and help your supports funnel their energy much faster. Otherwise, the rest of them are also pretty decent, the utility. None of them really make too much of a significant difference other than Huo right now in hyper carry team compositions. Next one, special shout out to any husbando lovers out there. Sunday is your first Harmony limited 5-star. I guess if you don't count Kalos, right? Kalos technically is not limited. So this is your first character that you can actually pull on that is limited. Really fantastic. First Harmony as well. your imaginary and husbando teams, I want to merge it in one so we don't make it too long, because I don't think too many people are playing mono imaginary nowadays, but I know there are some husbando lovers out there. You have Dr. Ratio, fantastic imaginary character. You can also run Imbibitor Lune, but you might lack a bit of in terms of like resources or skill points and stuff like that. Well, it's a great husbando and a nihility damage dealer and imaginary at the same time, so it's quite decent to like put on debuffs for your Dr. Ratio. He's also coming up free in this current patch, so you can always pick him up if in your standard tickets if you really wanted to make like a husbando team and you maybe got Dr. Ratio from the free event previously. This is a really nice team that you can get together Sunday. Triple imaginary husbandos, and you can round things off with like a sustain, for example, like Luota, for example, like Aventrine. These two are great options. But if you really just wanted to fulfill your husbando team, you can just slap in like a Gallagher or something. At least nowadays, today, we have so much more options, and I'm glad that Sunday has came in to help fulfill this niche of husbando lovers teams, because other than that, you have to probably like play nihility or like Kalos to most extent. But yeah, this is another team competition. And last but not least, there's always something, as mentioned at the start of the video, for everyone, and this is a new player team special. And of course, if you guys have any advice to new players, I'm sure they will appreciate it in the comments below too. Share your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of people will be asking some comments about Sunday. And at the same time, new players, what would I recommend? I think new players is really where Remembrance is coming about. Remembrance MC likely is going to be quite strong with Sunday just because of the synergies of Remembrance having a summon, but we don't exactly know yet, so I would keep this reserved. In the current game state, you are looking for a damage dealer in the synergy slot. Herta is really nice to build into, Herta 4-star, because you are able to bring her into Pure Fiction later on. You can push her up, give her some damage buff. You're not going to exactly have the best damage dealers in the game, but you have a character that scales nicely with time. She will still have a use in Pure Fiction later on for newer players. So my recommendation probably is like Herta. If you're looking for a bit more damage coverage, a good AoE character, Serval, is also nice. She can eventually go into Pure Fiction game mode if you're looking for some like electric AoE kind of unit. She's still decent there. Not the best, that's why I really recommend Herta a little bit more. For those of you who are using your standard ticket, a character like Himiko of course is super solid, but I know that this video might not be up till 3.2. People beyond 3.2 might have it, but I'll be looking at this and not be like having that free standard ticket, so I'll just leave it aside. But Himiko is probably a great synergy slot here if you're looking for a damage dealer. Pivot, Esther, great AoE DPS, free of charge, very, very nice. She skills well with time, she can play into many team compositions, DOT, break, whatever not. She's very flexible, she gives a lot of speed to the rest of the team to help them cycle through their rotations. And Lynx, Natasha, both are okay as well. They give you good amounts of sustain throughout the team, but Lynx does have a bit more utility later on, especially when you're merging with like destruction-based characters and stuff like that. And that's my thoughts for the Sunday teams. If you guys appreciate such content, do like, comment, and subscribe for more of such future content. Thank you guys again so much for watching. We do this every single patch, and see you guys in the next video.